On ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland, it's 10 minutes past 2, and that is Breakout from Swing Out, Sister. My name's Kat. Do you remember this?
Banana boat.
Front side protection.
Banana boat.
It's 30 plus.
Banana boat.
It lasts for hours and hours and hours.
You probably remember it, and you can probably tell me the product that's
Michael.
being advertised there. And I'm sure that's not the only ad that you could sing along to. I wouldn't mind hearing from you, actually. 1300 222 612. What ads could you sing along to? In some cases, these ads might be more memorable than some of your favourite songs. What is the secret to an ad like that? And is it a secret that advertisers discovered in the 80s and 90s? Is it a secret that today's advertisers are using, turning back to what was done in the 80s and 90s? And what place does nostalgia have in advertising products today? Answers to those questions coming up right after this.
Breakfast with Craig Zonka and Loretta Ryan.
Lisa Miller, who joins us.
Talking about the new season of Mustard Dogs. What are their names again?
Lily has Snow, Zoe has Buddy, Russ has Molly, and to confuse things even more, Russ has a baby daughter called Millie. I just said to him, "What were you thinking, mate? That's a problem." And he said his wife was the first one to make the mistake.
Craig Zonka and Loretta Ryan. Back tomorrow morning from 5. ABC Radio Brisbane.
Now we're talking.
ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. On air and streaming on the ABC Listen app.
This is Kat Feeney.
My dad drinks the fruit that goes through bunnies to make the cordial that I like best.
Oh, boy, I remember that ad. Do you remember that ad, Mr. Ben Slater?
I do.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do, but randomly, and it's in the back of your brain. So
Okay.
just something sparks forward.
Yeah, and you see yourself reaching for a
Yes.
container of that drink product.
correct.
I'm curious about you remembering this because you're not a kid born
No.
in Australia.
No, correct.
You are an ad man. You are a microchipped ex-advertising agency guy
That's me, yes.
with experience of countries that are not Australia.
Yeah, correct.
That's an Australian ad, is it not?
It is. So I grew up and was born in New Zealand, but spent a lot of time in Queensland and Brisbane. So, I guess there was these things that you hear maybe once a year as a kid, and yet it still sticks.
It's amazing, isn't
It
it?
is. It's incredible.
How do they do that?
The buggers.
Yeah, those ad people. And it seems as though some of those golden oldies are making a bit of a comeback. What's going on?
They are. So I guess at the end of the day for advertisers, they want us to feel absolutely positive about their products. And there's nothing like feeling positive about your childhood. Everyone's got really fun memories about their childhood, about growing up. I mean, there's bad things in childhood as well, but the majority of the time it is about feeling joy, about feeling a connection with your youth and all the rest. So if you're connecting those sorts of feelings with a feeling of nostalgia, then whoop-de-doo, you've got yourself a sale.
Yeah, right, okay. That seems to be happening more and more. Maybe it's just because some products are achieving legacy status. You know, they're celebrating significant anniversaries, so it kind of makes sense to go back through time. But what's with some of these big brands kind of bringing back old ad campaigns? Not just trying to take you back to your childhood and presenting you pictures of children having a nice time, but really trying to take us back.
Because the people who are in charge of the ad agencies are actually reliving their youth. That's it. It is legitimately it. The people who are now making decisions about the advertising that we see are the people who grew up on these ads. So they've actually, when they produce ads or pitch to a client, they've got all of those sensibilities of the things that they grew up with. So they are infused with the joy when they present. Now, it just makes sense that, it's easier to actually bring back old footage. It's easier to not necessarily reinvent the wheel. You might do something slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's financially easier because you've already got a memory buried deep in your brain as a consumer that's going to resonate. But the people who are selling the advertising idea to their clients, they're full of joy. They're like, remember this, I remember this, you remember that.
I see.
Makes it an easier sale process.
Lila in Brisbane, you remember this, don't you? Could you complete the lyrics? lyrics. Lila, please.
We all enjoy Vegemite for breakfast, lunch and tea. That sort of wording.
That's all right. The little
I'd have to start
Vegemite
it from the
songs.
very beginning.
Yeah.
But we dressed our students at Hemmett State School up in Vegemite kind of costumes to try and win $100, I think. And it was just the most hilarious thing you've ever seen. These little tiny people from prep through to year 7 and dressed like Vegemite containers. It was so good.
That is adorable.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's the kind of thing, like if you had vision of that today, that would go viral and that would be an ad campaign for a product that the product people wouldn't have to pay for. Is that also what's happening here?
Oh, absolutely.
They're tapping into social media and user-generated
All the
content.
user-generated content. Absolutely right. So Lila's got a memory of that happening, but no evidence of it. Maybe there's a photo in a drawer somewhere or something like that, which if you could get hold of that, Vegemite people would be through the roof. The craft would be happy as.
Because it provides legitimacy to the brand.
It does. And it comes back to the fact that they're not having to do something. Someone else is doing something for you and referring the product on for their joy of sharing an experience.
Interesting stuff, Lila. Thank you very much. What ads do you remember? 1300 222 612. I'm painfully aware that you are listening to ABC Radio Brisbane in Queensland. This is your national broadcaster. Live and uninterrupted by advertising is what I tell you most of the time. But we're talking about advertising today because you're in the company of Ben Slater, who's an ad guy. And we're exploring the use of nostalgia in advertising now so that you can be forewarned. Knowledge is power, after all. Now, there's an interesting thing happening, isn't there, with a vintage ad campaign or product for a familiar brand. This is happening in the US, but I guess it has implications for us here in Australia. What's going on with the Grimace return at Mackie D's?
So everyone remembers the old Grimaces and all the rest when we're kids, the Happy Meals and so on and so
Well, the
forth.
characters that McDonald's
yeah, exactly
put
right.
out,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, and they drifted away from that for a while, but recently in probably the last 6 months actually, Macca's decided to make a return to that type of marketing and they released a purple milkshake. Now, which is great, purple milkshake, Grimace and all the rest, but what happened is the interwebs got hold of it and suddenly the Grimace milkshake turned into a murder scene type scenario where Grimace was going around and not doing good things. And it went absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Everything was purple, spilt everywhere, and there was a whole bunch of things going on. Now, at the time, you'd expect Macca's to sort of get a little bit up in arms about it. Didn't seem to care. They honestly seem to lean into it from this respect that we can't control this. We can't be some sort of person trying to stamp out the evidence of this on the internet. And it existed, and then it sort of drifted away. It was good. And it sold a hell of a lot of purple milkshakes, one would imagine.
And I guess this is the key thing. Like to be a critical consumer is to do a lot of things, to do a bit of work. What is this product? Do I really need it? Why are they trying to sell it to me?
Correct.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So with regards to advertising, you might want to interrogate some of the messages in the ads.
Yeah.
And if the message's bottom line wasn't your childhood better than today, and if that is proving to be a successful message so far as so many advertisers are tapping into that rich seam of nostalgia.
Correct.
What does that say about how we feel as people generally about the world we're living in, Ben?
Yeah, well, it's scary, isn't it? I guess it's just we're trying to have joy in advertising. That's what it comes to. Advertising is about entertainment and joy. So if we can tap into that and make people feel a little bit of joy in their lives just for a little bit, then who's to really care?
Thank you, AdWorld, for helping us find happiness.
Exactly.
No, I
I've bought the
really
comics ad
appreciate it.
agencies. I may have a little bit of
All right.
advertising's about joy.
And it's about selling stuff is what it
Yeah,
is.
whatever. Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Well, there's this ad campaign, which sounds really beautiful and joyful.
See, I loved this one.
Jenny at Burleigh, you could sing along to that, couldn't you, all afternoon? Hi,
I
Jenny.
could, Kat, I could. It's just one of those ads that sticks in your mind with all the kids, from different nationalities. They're all singing the same song. And just like you were talking before, I grew up with Vegemite and, you're not soaking in it, are you, Marge, and all that sort of stuff.
Love that one.
And, with the dishwashing detergent, you're soaking in it, that one.
Yes.
Anyway,
that was
what I'm
palm
just
olive, I
saying-
think. Yeah.
Palm olive, that's correct. I think a lot of us, now that, like I'm in my 60s, we do want to go back to what we knew that was a sweet childhood, and everybody looked at everybody as the same, not as anything different other than themselves, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's really interesting, this desire to look back at what might be described as a simpler time. And Jenny, I'm wondering, like, have those ads been that powerful that you still have a relationship with those products today?
With some of them. I'll still have Vegemite, of course. You know, a lot of the ads did things to maybe my generation that they came up with classic lines. So a lot of the ads that we read have become Australian colloquialisms, and people just say them all the time.
Part of the vernacular. Yep.
Yeah, I say, you know, it's the best of situation tonight, and people look at me and go, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Well, Besta was like a rice riso type of dinner that you just did all in 5 minutes when you had the unexpected guest, but I use it in my everyday speaking when I'm, you know, a bit frustrated or something. Not the best of situation.
Not happy, Jenny, or Jan, as the case may be. And Jenny makes an excellent point. You know, an ad must be considered successful if it becomes part of the vernacular.
Yes.
What's the translation, though? Again, coming back to your Kiwi origins.
Oh, yes, good question.
Between Aussie ads and Kiwi ads.
So this is hilarious because Kiwi kids are Weet-Bix kids, thank you very much, not Aussie kids. And we're happy little Vegemites in New Zealand as well. So all of those ads were translated. There was another one, there was the Milky Bar. Remember the Milky Bar kid?
Oh, yeah.
So there was a Milky Bar kid in New Zealand that was chosen, and the ad campaign was this train. It was huge. So because of the fact we have the internet now,
yes.
and you know, we're seeing a lot more of the world. But when you're in New Zealand, we're Kiwi kids being Weet-Bix kids. There's Aussie kids being Weet-Bix kids.
No, they stole it. Those Aussie kids stole it from us. Again, another thing the Australians have taken from us.
Yeah, exactly right. But the funny thing was that probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, there started to be a change where you started to see Aussie ads come into New Zealand. And you can actually tell, this is going to sound terrible, you can actually tell an Aussie ad because there was a lot more red-headed, freckly kids in it. Whereas in New Zealand, being a bit more multicultural at the time, there was a lot more brown faces.
Wow.
So you could, it wasn't just that, and they would actually overdub the voices over the top. Like occasionally see those ads from like Germany and it doesn't quite match up. The voices don't quite match
cleaning
up.
products and organisational devices. Yeah.
So we started to see this influx of Aussie ads that was sort of Kiwiified, and it's now swapped back the other way. So there's a lot more Kiwi ads in New Zealand.
On New Zealand. It's 25 minutes past 2. You're on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. My name's Kat. Ben Slater with you. He's an ad guy, and we're talking about advertising because what you're seeing today in advertising is quite interesting in many respects. Some of the advertising today is just repurposed advertising from back in your day.
Yes.
For all of the reasons that we've discussed. Nostalgia is appealing. Ad people are at an age now where they themselves remember those ads, and that makes it an easier pitch for executives. And sometimes these things take off on social media, and then that's free advertising for the products. I'm also keen to remember some of the ads that have stuck in your brain.
We're talking about dollars and cents.
Because
dollars and cents.
No idea. I've got nothing.
Lynn, help him out. What's this all about?
That's about when we converted from pounds, shillings and pence to dollars and cents.
Really?
That's right.
In an American accent.
And we had income the dollars and income the cents.
And I think
out go the pounds, the shillings, and the pence.
That's awesome.
And so it was to the original campaign, and it was a government campaign for the conversion to decimal currency, to the sound of Clip Go the Shears.
Shears, yeah.
That's the one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yep. Which is funny because government advertising sometimes really does get it right.
Right.
In that sometimes it's really memorable. I think when there's this public service announcement style advertising falls into that category too sometimes, like this one.
Slop, slap.
The same thing?
It sounds like a breeze when you say it like that.
Did you have this in New Zealand?
Yes, we did, yeah. With a little duck walking around.
Yeah, Sid the seagull.
So,
I don't know what you people have. You have a duck.
We had a duck.
Maybe it wasn't a kiwi, obviously. That'd be too obvious.
Slip on a shirt, slap on sunscreen, and slap on a hat.
But the other thing that I'm picking up on here is jingles.
Jingles are powerful stuff.
Are they a big deal today, or were they a bigger deal back then? And especially when it's a jingle plus a phone number, a call to action.
It's repetition. So the jingle works because of repetition. You would have heard this all the flipping time. Just that jingle would have been going left, right and centre just as you go. Now, today, very, very hard to have repetition of audio. Very, very hard.
Why is that?
Just because we've got so many sources of content. Like if you think of the TikTok generation, you know, they're flicking on something for 13 milliseconds and moving right along. Songs, however, definitely. And songs generally become popular because of popular media like, Stranger Things. You've got some sort of song that makes it massive and then it gets onto TikTok and then it gets played. I'm constantly surprised by my kids singing songs. I'm like, where'd you hear that? That's like from 1942. Like one of my boys was walking around singing Frank Sinatra the other day. I was like, why are you listening to that? I heard it on TikTok. Sounds cool.
And it was an ad.
It was just someone had put onto TikTok. But that's what I'm saying is that they're getting so many more sources of auditory content that a jingle is just, if it works, it works.
Yeah, but there's a lot of noise that
a lot harder to do.
They're hearing as it is. Okay. Judy at Peachester.
11 herbs and spices make your finger looking good.
You remember this one, Judy?
Well, that's not quite the ad that I had in mind.
Oh, yeah?
The one I had in mind was a cartoon.
Uh-huh.
4 very fat people sitting in the car with the sunroof down and the horses, the cartoon horses and cows and sheep were all dancing along, and it was Hugo said you go, and I said no you go, and soon he was back with the pack, and we sat in the back. Feeling, and I can't sing it. A ride is not funny with an empty tummy. Thank goodness for Kentucky Fried.
Yes,
and,
advertising.
And look, and there's so many. There's Amoco in my machine, Amoco nice and clean, and they have the beautiful countryside and the classic car and the husband and wife sitting in a beautiful paddock, and all was wonderful because Amoco fuel was so clean.
Well, I'm so glad you bring up classic cars because...
Australia, what's your favourite sport?
Football.
Snake?
Pies.
Animal?
Kangaroo.
And what's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden.
Let me see, that's football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like Australia to me.
We are.
Well, then you better tell me again, because I just might forget.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
Football, meat pies, kangaroos. You've got nothing, New Zealander?
No, we had the bugger ad with Toyota.
You did have that one.
Yeah.
Wow. So the other thing I'm really picking up on is, this ad is still going. And this is but a 40-second clip of an ad that runs a lot longer than 40 seconds. Some of the shifts in advertising, and you sort of reference this in relation to social media, but the platforms have changed. We know, you need to grab a young audience in the first couple of seconds, whereas you might have had a whole minute to capture someone's attention because we just sat in front of a scheduled television station that had to take ad breaks at certain times, and those ad breaks were certain lengths of time, and so you could have time to fill an ad.
The remote was at the other side of the room, or you had 2 channels to watch, and that was it. But what is happening, and this is so I think it's great anyway from an advertising perspective, we're moving back towards that.
Really?
We are. We're moving back towards storytelling. And length of storytelling. You'll see the bigger brands are actually leaning into storytelling as a method for selling, as opposed to just quick, snappy stuff, because there's so much quick, snappy stuff these days.
Give me an example of a storytelling scenario in 2020 something.
Well, so there's a particular brand in the UK which only releases 1 ad a year.
Wow.
1 ad. And it's a story. And last year's one was pretty bad, but the previous ones have been really good. So everyone looks forward to this one particular story. Apple does the same thing. So they release, really good storytelling sort of devices every year and things like that. So you're just starting to see more of that because people want to be emotionally connected to brands as opposed to fiscally connected.
That's fascinating because there was part of me that was wondering, this tapping of nostalgia that's happening with major brands at the moment to really eke out the last bit of money they possibly can from people who have been devoted purchasers kind of all their life. People who grew up in an era where the platforms were few, the ads were powerful, and you didn't really have much or as much choice as you do now. Whereas today's consumers who are kids today are growing up in really crowded, very noisy markets. So fast forward 50 years, will the advertising in 50 years try to tap a nostalgia for kids today, or will that be impossible because the whole landscape has moved on such that you just don't get the same deep brand connections now that you used to get back in the day when Noel, hi Noel.
Hi.
Back in the day when you were probably singing along to this.
Real cream, real cream, real cream, real cream, a little hallelujah, real cream.
Right? Do you remember this one, Noel?
I certainly do.
70 years ago, baby.
Do you still buy Brill Cream?
At least.
Do you still buy it, Noel? Can you even get it anymore?
I haven't seen it for a long time.
There you go.
So the ad lives on, but the product is gone. That's interesting, isn't it?
That's right.
Noel, that and all of the other ads that you remember, these were ads that you saw, what, on early TV or heard on early radio?
It was radio and also very early TV.
Yeah. And they were kind of that plus billboards and newspapers / print material. That was basically it ads-wise, right?
That's about it, yes.
I guess so. You would read, the product boxes and things themselves were little ads.
Oh, that's the best place of advertising is on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's the best place you can place advertising.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, Noel, if you can think of, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but this is kind of the point of the exercise. Can you think of a modern ad for anything that you've heard in the last couple of years that's stuck in your mind to the degree that Brill Cream ad stuck in your mind?
Oh, that's telling, isn't it?
Short answer for that is no.
There you go. So what does that tell us, Ben?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you bang on. And I'm pretty sure Brill Cream's still on the shelf, but there's probably, back in the day, there would have been Brill Cream and, two other pretenders. Whereas now we've got a plethora of products that we can choose from. But what you'll notice that's happening actually, when you go to a supermarket, choice is actually the enemy of purchase. So that's why the Aldis of this world work, because you've got, a simple range in front of you. So what's happening in the world of product on shelf is that they're actually shrinking the types of brands that you'll be able to purchase from. Because if you stand there and look at tomato soup and you go, oh, there's 10 different brands of tomato soup, you'll move on and not buy tomato soup, basically.
It's too hard.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
So going back to your point before, we're actually going to see, I believe anyway, we're going to see a lessening of brand names, but more powerful voice from those brand names. Because basically they're going to have more money to spend in a sort of smaller space. And people that require advertising to make their channels exist require advertisers to spend. So money's going to be spent.
Well, but not here on the ABC because we don't take your advertising money. Thank you very
agnostic.
much, you dirty, dirty people. All right, Ben Slater, you've been a dream.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Drama.
Ben Slater, batteries not included, ex-ad guy, dad band member, and your guest this afternoon on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. My name's Kat. This is Ben.